Hello everyone. Before we begin, turn off the lights, put your phone on silent, and listen closely. If you enjoy true horror stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more real horror stories like this one. It started with a sentence I shouldn't have said. We'd argued before, but not like this. It wasn't even the big thing. It was a small scrape that hides under the big thing and waits for the wrong hour. I grabbed my phone, didn't check the battery, didn't take a coat, and banged the door behind him like I wanted the street to know who was right. I didn't think about the time until I was halfway down the path, and the cold reminded me. It was 11:27 p.m. The garage light stuttered on when I walked in, that delayed blink that always makes me feel watched. I got in the car, sat a second with my hands on the wheel, and told myself I'd just drive a few miles, breathe, then head to my sister's, let the night cool down before words did more damage. I turned the key, the dash lit, the radio woke to static, and then found a song I didn't care about. I pulled out slow so I wouldn't clip the bins, and the road received me like a thing I'd been saving for later. The estate looked rinsed, empty windows, the dentist sign clicking to itself in the breeze. A fox trotted across the main road with something soft in its mouth and never looked at me. I passed the last street lamp before the bypass, and the car felt louder as soon as the dark took charge. The glass kept my breath close. The heater tried to help and lost. For a while there was only road, tarmac, white paint, cat's eyes throwing their little sparks. The argument replayed the way arguments do when you finally get some quiet. I gave myself all the lines I should have used and none of the ones I did. It helped exactly as much as it always helps. I took the long straight that cuts between the old yards and the scrubland. On the left, the chain link fence sagged in that tired way it has. On the right, the ditch glittered like a cheap thought. The dash clock kept its polite glow. That's when I saw it. A figure ahead, just beyond the reach of the headlamps, centered on the broken white line. White clothing. Still, I eased off the accelerator without meaning to. The car slowed with a reluctance that felt personal. I blinked and told myself it was a signpost or a bag, something waiting for daylight to make sense again. The figure didn't change shape. As I closed the distance, white turned into white, not reflective tape, not a hoodie, cloth that didn't belong to the road. I stopped without quite deciding to. Tires hushed against the tarmac. The engine idled. My mouth found the only brave word it had left. Hello. No answer. No hand lifted. The figure stood where the centerline divided us, tall enough to demand attention, quiet enough to make me hate how loud my breath had become. Do you need help? I tried again and watched for any small admission of being alive. A shift, a turn, the slightest bend of a shoulder. Nothing moved. The car's interior light stayed dark. The radio softened itself, like it didn't want to be blamed for anything that came next. Fear arrived the way fog does, then at the edges first, then everywhere. I put the car in reverse. The gear clicked like a door latch. I checked the rear view out of habit and saw empty road, a ribbon waiting for a decision. I turned my head to look properly through the back window. Someone stood behind the car. White clothing. Clothes enough that if I'd lifted my foot, I would have rolled into them. My stomach dropped in one fast, mean step. I looked forward. The road ahead was empty. I looked back. Empty. I looked forward again, and for one heartbeat the white figure was there, centered, as if the blink had carried it back into place. Then gone. The night had learned a trick I didn't want to know. I said, please, without knowing who I was talking to. I didn't drive. I couldn't. I sat with my hands on the wheel and felt the tremor run from my fingers into the plastic, like static trying to find ground. I shouted for help the way you do when you know there's no one to hear it. My voice bounced off windscreen and roof lining and came back smaller. The heater fan ticked as if a leaf had caught in it. The dash clock moved to the next minute with a confidence I envied. I reached for my phone and woke a black screen. Pressed the button. Nothing. Pressed harder, as if that mattered to glass. I put the hazard lights on because red felt like it would make the car bigger. The reflection strobed across the ditch water and the fence wire in my own hands. The road held its breath with me. Okay, I said, because people talk to the air when they want rules to exist. Okay. I checked the mirrors again. Slow. Rear. Clear. Right wing. Clear. Left wing. The left-hand mirror gave me a sliver of someone in white standing just outside the headlamp spill, angled, as if they didn't want light to understand them. I turned my head. Nothing beside me. Back to the mirror. There they were, patient as a rule. I swallowed the noise my throat wanted to make and chose the only plan that felt like a plan. I took my foot off the brake and let the car creep forward until the engine agreed we were going somewhere. 10, 15, 20. The figure in the mirror stayed exactly the same distance away, as if the glass had decided to keep it from me. Stay on the line, I told myself, because sometimes an order helps even when you don't know who's obeying. I drove. The white dashes passed under me like a metronome. I kept the wheels straight and let the fear sit in the passenger seat where it could look out the window and be quiet. A pair of headlights broke the horizon behind me, far, then nearer, then near enough that the road remembered how to be a road. The relief hit so hard it hurt. I felt my shoulders drop, that inch you never realize you've been holding them. I put the indicator on for no reason other than to say I was a person again. The oncoming car climbed the long, shallow rise, dipped its beam like a courtesy, and held a straight line down the center of the night. I breathed, not steady, but honest. The car passed. The white glare washed through my cabin, and for a blink the figure in my left mirror showed its edge more clearly. There was a shape where a face should be, but the light slid off it like oil off water. The car went by. The glare died. The mirror gave me back only the lane, and my own door handle catching the headlamp glow. I didn't stop. I wouldn't again. I kept the speed legal and my eyes forward. The phone in the cup holder shivered once against plastic. Screen still dead. The radio spat a single clipped syllable between songs that sounded like my name through fabric. No, I said out loud, because sometimes the smallest word is the only shield you get. The road began to show its edges the way it does when you're nearing houses. Hedges cropped tighter. Pavements appeared. A bus stop with a scratched glass panel promised the world would start again soon. In the panel, my headlamps to my reflection back at me, and behind it, centered and polite, a white shape stood as if the glass itself had invited it to stay. I didn't lift my foot. I didn't blink on purpose. I kept distance between truth and the thing that wanted to be truth, and let the car make choices for me. A distant amber light rose over the bend. Another car. Relief again, smaller this time because I understood it wouldn't fix anything that mattered. I kept to my lane. The amber turned to glare, then shaped itself into a little hatchback with a roof box, probably a family heading somewhere before morning decided who they were. When their lights hit my windscreen, the entire road filled with white. In that wash, where the centerline should have been, I saw a cloth lift and fall like breath where no person stood to use it. The wash passed. The cloth was gone. The line was only paint again. I reached the roundabout before my sister's turn and took it slightly too fast because I wanted corners to exist and be reliable. The indicator ticked like a metronome someone had knocked with an elbow. My hands left damp marks on the wheel. I wiped them on my jeans and hated that detail. 2 streets more. The world shrank to headlights, glass, and the thought of a familiar door. The kind of door that forgives you for arriving late with a story you won't tell properly. I pulled onto a road and slowed without thinking. People sleep here. People dream here. Empty milk bottles on steps. Recycling bins waiting for a morning that will be 10 minutes too early. I turned the car off outside her place. Silence is louder in a parked car. The engine pinged as it cooled. The heater sighed and gave up. My breath fogged the inside of the windscreen in a small oval, and then cleared with the slow stubbornness of tired glass. In the rear view, the road behind me lay flat and innocent. Nothing stood there. I looked ahead. The small frosted pane in my sister's door held its usual milky glow. As I watched, the frost bloomed an oval at knee height from the inside, as if a breath had pressed there to be let in. A second oval formed beside it, smaller, lower. They held, then thinned, then held again. I wanted to lock the car doors, but I was already locked in the choice I'd made. Drive here. Get out. Go inside. Let the hot kitchen lights erase the rest. I opened the door, and the night smell came in like cold metal. I stepped out, stood on her path, and felt that little give in the air you only notice when someone has been standing where you're standing and hasn't quite left. I walked to the door and pressed the bell. The chime stuttered once, like a breath caught in the throat. Her steps came down the hallway. Safe, familiar weight. She opened up with that face she keeps for me. Relief first, questions later. God, Claire, she said, pulling me into warmth. You're freezing. I'm fine. I lied, and the lie was almost a kindness. She closed the door. The latch gave its little click, normal and welcome. Behind me, the frosted pane breathed one last oval at knee height, and then kept its mist to itself. What happened? Road, I said, one of those nights. She glanced past me toward the hall, like she caught the aftertaste of a story I hadn't told. Do I need to phone him? Not tonight, I said. I just need it here. She nodded. Stay as long as you want. I sat at the table with the mug warming my hands, and the house moved through its small sounds like a person settling under a heavy blanket. The radiator clicked into its rhythm. The clock on the wall admitted it was later than anyone in this kitchen deserved. I didn't look at the door. I didn't look at the glass. I looked at my sister making tea as if it were a spell that always works. When I finally stood to go to the sofa, I let myself glance. The frosted pane showed nothing but its own breath. Clean, quiet, innocent. My chest loosened a little, just enough to leave a place for the tired to sit. We didn't talk about it, not directly. She set the spare duvet on the sofa and made the pillow puff up like a small cloud. I thanked her for letting me be ridiculous at midnight. She said I wasn't ridiculous. She said I was allowed to be human. You could have stayed home, she added softly, because sisters are licenses for the truth. I know, I said. I wish I had. I woke to pale morning and the quiet that belongs to houses where the day hasn't started its lists. My sister had left a note by the kettle in her chirpy handwriting, telling me to rest, to help myself, to call him if I wanted, to call her if I didn't. I walked to the door and looked at the frosted pane. Two faint ovals sat at knee height, dry into the shape of nothing. I touched the glass. Cold, but ordinary cold. The kind you get in a house that minds its business. On the walk back to my car, the road performed normal life in small scenes. A runner pretending not to be tired. A dog bouncing at a leaf like it found treasure. A child refusing a coat. The world pretended it hadn't noticed what the night got up to when nobody is looking. I sat behind the wheel and started the engine. The radio found a cheerful voice. The heater blew the damp off the windscreen. In the mist that pulled back from the glass, a small oval formed at the very bottom edge by the passenger side, held there like a secret practicing how to be small, and then thinned until it was just clean glass again. I drove without checking the mirrors too much. I should have stayed home. I know that now, because the road keeps a part of you if you walk at the wrong hour, and it sometimes sends a part back to check you made it through. I come from a family where farming was a way of life. It wasn't just something we did. It was part of who we were. Behind our house, we had a small farm. We went there often, taking care of the crops, tending to the animals. But there was also another farm, one that was a bit farther away from our house. It wasn't close. It was a bit of a walk. And that's where my story begins. I was only 14 when everything started to change, but it had been happening slowly, long before I noticed. Growing up, I was always the type to play while my mother worked. I never took the work seriously. Whenever we went to farm, my mother would ask me to come and help her, but I was always running around, playing, lost in my own little world. She'd call me, telling me to come, but I just kept running, thinking she would get the work done, and she always did. Even when she was tired, she never pushed me too hard. She'd call my name, but when I didn't respond, she'd just shake her head and continue working. I didn't understand at the time that it was a lot of work for her. She was tired, but I was young, and to me it was just play. It wasn't until later that I realized how much I had been taking for granted. Now, near our farm, there was something that should have made me afraid, but I didn't really think about it until later. Just a short distance away from where we worked, there was a mortuary. It wasn't something that I paid attention to or was scared of because I was always with my mom while going to the farm, and we didn't speak much of the dead. I didn't know anyone who worked there. I didn't know much about it at all. I just knew it was there in the background. Most days, I would forget I was going too close to, lost in the fun of playing around. But my mother, she never forgot. She always made sure I didn't wander too far. Calling my name every time I got distracted, I would ignore her, and she'd continue her work, assuming I would come back soon enough. That was the routine. One day, as usual, I was playing, running around while my mother worked. She finished her work early, as she often did, and called out to me as usual. But this time, I had wandered too far. I didn't hear her calling me. She called and called, but I didn't hear her. I kept playing, not realizing how much time had passed. Eventually, she packed up what she could carry and left. She left the remaining items behind, hoping that when I came back from playing, I would come and get them. It didn't seem strange to me at the time. I assumed she would come back for me when I was done. When I finally stopped playing, I realized my mother was gone. Panic hit me for the first time that day. I looked around confused, and I quickly noticed that I was alone. I tried to tell myself it was okay, that she had just gone ahead without me, but there was an unsettling feeling that lingered. The mortuary just ahead suddenly felt like it was too close. I had to walk past it to get back to the house. I wasn't sure why, but for some reason, fear crept in. I tried to push it aside. I packed the things I was meant to carry, hoping that it would give me some comfort. But the closer I got to the mortuary, the more my heart started to race. As I walked by, I noticed something that froze me in place. There was a man standing by the mortuary, tall and dressed in white, almost like a gown. He was staring inside, peering through the window. His posture was strange, like he was waiting for something. It wasn't normal, and it made me feel like I had stumbled upon something that wasn't meant to be seen. I kept my distance, watching him in fear, unsure of what to do. At that moment, I wished I had listened to my mother and stayed close to her, but my mind couldn't work fast enough. I was too frightened to think of running. I stood there, watching him, my heart pounding. And then, from behind me, I heard it. Footsteps. They were getting closer. But when I turned, there was no one there. The footsteps continued, and that's when I realized I wasn't alone. Something or someone was following me. I was paralyzed with fear. My legs didn't move, but my heart was beating faster than ever. And then, suddenly, everything snapped. I turned and ran as fast as I could. The terror inside me overwhelmed everything else. I grabbed the things I was meant to carry and bolted, taking the longest path I could find, away from the mortuary, away from whatever I felt chasing me. I ran down a small road, towards Express Road where cars passed by. It was a road I had never taken before, because I feared the people would laugh at me for walking that route, seeing me dirty and unkempt from the farm. But that day I didn't care. All I cared about was getting as far away from the mortuary as possible. When I reached the Express Road, the noise of the cars gave me a strange sense of comfort. The streetlights felt like safety. For the first time since I left the farm, I felt like I could breathe again. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still being followed. I slowed down as I made my way home, trying to regain my composure. I didn't care who was watching me anymore. All I wanted was to be back at home, safe. When I finally reached the house, I told my mother what had happened. I expected her to listen and comfort me, but instead, she just laughed. She didn't understand. To her, it was just another one of my adventures. She said she had always warned me about wandering off when she called. "That's what I do," she said. She didn't seem worried. It didn't seem like anything serious. But I knew what I'd felt, and it stayed with me for a long time after that day. After that, whenever we went to the farm, I made sure to stay close to my mother. The fear from that day never really left me. It haunted me for a long time. The memory of that man standing at the window and the footsteps that never should have been there. Now, I'm 27 years old, married, and telling my story. Even now, I can't forget what happened that day. And the grief of seeing a ghost still hits me when I think of what could have been.